Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Wednesday show presented by This Is Ibrox. I am joined by two fantastic guests, as always. I'm sure they both share the same sentiment, and thank God that international break is over. It's the Royal Ranger himself. It's JB. How are you doing today, JB?
Yeah, good evening, lads. Yeah, really good, thank you. You've took the words out of my mouth straight away. Feels like the longest international break ever. So, I remember just as when that Dundee game got called off, I thought, you know what, this is going to be a nice welcome break because a lot of travelling, like a lot of different journeys up the road and trips to Lisbon and stuff. I thought, you know what, take a breath here. But I think I gave it till about the Monday afternoon. I was like, bring it back. But it's exciting times again.
Yeah, it's so glad to be talking about a game that's only a few days away. It's Reiss, and how are you doing today as well?
Yeah, all right. Glad that the proper football's back. And stop this international carry on.
That's it, exactly. There was a wee comment here. It just says, Reiss just finishing his homework, will be 5 minutes, and I can confirm it was indeed Reiss's fault. We had every iteration. We could see him, we couldn't see him, we could hear him, we couldn't hear him. Yeah, whatever, you can vote in the comments what you actually think's the best combination of Reiss up on the screen there. But listen, we're just glad to have him. He's been punished by being put on the second show in a row. On this international break. I don't know what you did to deserve that, but I'm glad you can finally talk about the football again. But yeah, let's just get into it. Tonight's show, we'll chat about one of, I think, as a Rangers fan, everybody's favourite subject, and that is injuries within the squad. We'll talk about some of the players that are returning, some of the players that are out long term, where do they fit in, what's their future. We'll get a sort of general idea on the sort of new way that the club seems to be dealing with the injuries. We'll have a wee discussion about Lewis McLeod's returning to the club. I think that's a really, really interesting appointment given how young he is. It was shocking reading it that he had to retire at 29 because of injuries. So there might be a theme in tonight's podcast. Reiss, as always, there's a wee bit, I'll come to you on that, Reiss, later on, to do with the B team. In terms of, I just loved that video. What a feel-good video that was. After that, and then finally, once we get through all of that, we will start talking about the Hibs game proper. Football, it's Saturday, 3 o'clock at Ibrox. It's the way it should be. JB, I'll just come to you first. Before we get into specific players and things like that, what have you made of the kind of new approach to dealing with injuries in the squad in terms of Clement seems to be listening to the medical staff a bit more, being a bit more considerate when he's using these players, whereas before it just seemed to be, he's back, we need you, fire him in.
Yeah, I think since he's come in, I don't think we'll appreciate the job he's done until kind of the dust probably settles at the end of the season. When you look at the amount of players that he's had to use and the amount of players that you could see as we come to that last block of fixtures, the amount of players that you could just see were running on empty. And that's because we've had to use them literally for every minute of every game. I mean, Tavernier, Goldson, Lundstrom, Suter, that last block of fixtures, they were undroppable. They were unmovable, just because of the lack of options kind of around them. And you kind of just felt as if, you know what, this is going to be tricky. But he's also the manager when he first come in. One of his things he said is he's only going to play players when they are available. And I think he has tried to do that. But I think he's had to do a few things towards the end of that last block of fixtures kind of out of his hands. I don't think for a second he would have wanted McCausland on the bench them last couple of games following the challenge against Motherwell. Cantwell coming on for a cameo against Benfica. Yeah. I think there's been a couple where we probably have had to rush people back. Touch wood, we don't have any knock-on impacts on the back of that. But there's no coincidence some of the guys that we've had within our squad we're getting more minutes out of as well. So if you think of the likes of Yilmaz, who went on international break and got injured, we've seen his best kind of run of form and best run without injuries. John Suter, another good example of someone that was breaking down every few minutes. So whatever they've changed behind the scenes, it definitely seems to be working. And a lot of the injuries that the guys have picked up have been impact injuries as opposed to just a tweak or whatever. So if you think of the likes of Danilo, Sima sounds like a bit of a freak training ground incident. Cortez was a bit of a freak injury in terms of the way he landed. Kieran Dow was a freak injury in terms of the service when he was in pre-season, and Sterling as well, obviously, just a bit of a suspect one. So yeah, I don't think we'll see the full benefit, the full run through of how Clement will manage a squad probably till pre-season and going into next season. But yeah, I do feel for the manager, and I think it's kind of took a little bit of pressure off the manager himself, I think, in terms of the injuries, because I think one thing about Rangers fans, we are realistic. As much as we're very demanding, we kind of get, you know what, this is surreal. So yeah, just wish us a wee bit of luck as we go into the next block of fixtures.
Yes, it's really hard to disagree with anything you've said there, but I do think that we are managing things a bit better. I should have maybe kept this question for you, GB, is that every time I think about subs and taking somebody off, it's your Liverpudlian accent I hear in my ear saying, take them off. But Reiss, what have you made? I know that you're involved in a lot of coaching and stuff like that, and I know you've got a personal interest in terms of, you know, players' recovery and stuff like that, and managing injuries. But have you been... I know the irony that I'm saying this is we're then going to talk for the next 25 minutes, 30 minutes about the injured players coming back. But like, has there been a different tack, different approach, even with taking players off earlier?
I think the subs are a lot more common now. They seem to be more regular, and that we always sort of get 2 substitutions, whether it's half time or it's 60 minutes, are coming. And I quite like the approach that, like you alluded to earlier, that we're not just chucking people in anymore. We're trying to get them back for the long term, because I don't know how many times Clement's referenced it, that there's no point bringing somebody back for half an hour to lose them for 3 weeks. And I think he's been a bit more clever with that. I think that's probably why we've seen so little of Kemar Roof, even though we know that the striker situation's not ideal. Because if we were to play him as much as we probably want to, as regularly as we want to, he would break down within, 2 games?
Yeah.
So it's good to see that there's a more considerate approach being taken to it, and that players are actually being helped back in their recovery. But again, come next season, especially with the players that you expect to leave the club in the summer, you just hope it's a lot less of an issue.
Yeah, that's it exactly. I too, like you, have been happier with the way that we've been managing things. Maybe not impressed to steal a line from our manager, but it's been certainly, I've been happier at the way that we have been dealing with things, because it makes a bit more sense. But just a wee word for everybody commenting. I see there's loads of good questions. I've actually starred quite a few for later on, so we will be coming back to our questions later on. But I see a few in here. JB, I'll come to you first. This is something that Ian and I were banging on about on last Wednesday's podcast. It's almost like it's come true, and that's the, you know, what we were discussing, should Rangers players, especially in friendlies, international friendlies, be prioritising their club. You know, I think Ian talked about some of the massive players. You know, it was Bernardo Silva, I think, for Man City, got a wee injury for Portugal just before, and I'm sure he'll be back playing at the weekend for them. But Ridvan Yilmaz gets called up to the Turkey squad last minute, and it is the most Rangers thing ever. Gets injured after 25 minutes. I think the official statement from the Turkey camp said it was an injury to his upper left thigh. Is this going to be a big loss for Rangers, given that he's been playing really, really well, and he's certainly my first choice left back at the minute?
Yeah, I think so. I think he just changes the dynamic of the way that we play, in terms of a fullback that can kind of, well, certainly a left-handed side, who's comfortable on the ball and can carry forward, will run into space. Quite happy to break the lines with passing. Borna, for all the great service he's given us over the years, they're probably 3 or 4 of the things that he's not that good at. One thing he's great at is if he's got a space and there's an attacker in the box, he'll probably find them with high quality cross. But other than that, he doesn't offer a lot. He's not great at, he hasn't been great at one-on-ones over the years. He's not a massive fan of exciting atmospheres away from Ibrox. He hasn't let us down too many times at Ibrox, to be fair, Barisic. So that's one of the things I was considering when Yilmaz was out. You look at the fixture list and you go, you know what? At least he hasn't got to go. He hasn't got to go to a Parkhead or an Easter Road or a Pataudry or anything, or a Kilmarnock, where he died on his arse a few weeks ago. So yeah, no, I'm not overly concerned just yet, but no doubt I definitely want Yilmaz back for that Old Firm if we can get him back, because I just think the way that the manager wants to play and he wants to set up, I think Yilmaz is really important to that. And in the run of games that he's had, he's definitely rewarded the manager with that faith that he's put in him, because there's been options that could have slipped in there, whether it had been Sterling or whether it had been Barisic coming back in. But no, fair play to young Yilmaz. He's done the business, but you can't really blame the player as well. I don't think it's certainly in his situation. It's not as if he's a 35-year-old player who's already racked up 75 caps. He's a young lad. Is the one thing about the Turks, the passionate supporters, passionate football players, fans, pundits, referees, owners, the wild army. So I think in terms of him having the chance to go represent his country, and don't forget he wasn't in the initial squad, so he only came in. So it was a gift for him to get in there. He probably wasn't expecting it, but yeah, ultra disappointed for him to see him missing out on the coming off on after 20 odd minutes.
Yeah, I think in all that, calling Turkish supporters, players, managers and refs passionate is the most understated sentence of the century. They are mental. Yeah. Over there. But yeah, again, the sentiment of what you're saying is he will be a loss. I'm not going to lie. I'm in terms of that left back position, I have the fear a wee bit in terms of, you mentioned that they are Borna Barisic, like that, performance at Kilmarnock was one of the worst performances I think I've ever seen in a Rangers jersey, and a guy that just looked like he's chucked it. Reiss, I'll come to you in this next part of the question. Obviously, first part, how big a loss is Yilmaz going out to be? Although there are rumours, I think somebody in the comments asked how long is it was Sharpie Staunch said how long is Ridvan out for, and his camp, or somebody's leaking in his camp that he might be back for the Old Firm game. Again, we'll take that with a pinch of salt. Nothing's confirmed, but are you concerned that he's going to be out for a length of time? And who would you play in at left back?
I'm not concerned that it'll be out long term. I think if it was going to be long term, we would know by now, whether it was a briefing for the club, maybe just briefing from his camp. Really, you always sort of get a sense when a player's got a bad one. Like with Sima, you knew sort of straight away that it was a bad one when he came out at AFCON. But I'm optimistic he'll be back for the Old Firm. I think the only option you've got at left back is Barisic. I'm not a fan of Yefeko at left back. I know some people say, he can maybe play there. Not for me. Maybe John Sterling, if he's back, he seems to cover everywhere else, so he might as well play left back, stick him in goals if Butland gets injured. But it's got to be back. But Barisic is effectively finished in my mind as a Rangers player, so it would be a stopgap for maybe Hibs on Saturday.
What about Robbie Fraser as a shout? The B team captain?
Do you know, I've never been overly impressed with Robbie Fraser, really, to be honest with you, in a B team game. And it wasn't until, I can't remember what game, it must have been Kilmarnock away. It was Kilmarnock away, actually, because I remember watching the B team highlights at half time, and he really impressed me in the B team highlights. So it was one of the games I wasn't at. I think it might have been, I don't know, I'm not even going to try to guess who it was, but the highlights were playing at half time. The Celtic game, we were 1-0 down, and you're looking for a bit of hope. And watching that, I thought maybe he actually could play there because he'd played a few decent passes and stuff. So maybe, but I think with so much at stake at this point in the season, to throw him in out the cold into that sort of game, it's not something I can see happening, or I would do myself, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. That you're right. I think if Clement trusted him, I think he would be in there. But I mean, maybe a spoiler for a bit later on in the show. But as I said, I think Barisic will play, but it does not fill me with confidence against a Hibs team that we know are going to be on the front foot at Ibrox. Look, I'll come to you here, JB, in the next player. We saw him in the last sort of 20 minutes of the Benfica game, but he still looked absolutely miles off it. For me, he's been really important. That's Todd Cantwell. I think he had that run of games where he scored 6-7 goals. If Ross was on this podcast, this is where I'd be going, just speak about how good Todd Cantwell is for the next 5 minutes. But for me, I think he is maybe the most important out of all the injured players to come back. Do you agree with that?
No, No, for me it would be Sima. I think Sima just gives us that power, energy, pace. Can do a little bit of everything. If I could choose one of them to be back, it would be him. That said, Cantwell, that run that you just touched on there prior to his injury, he looked like the player that we kind of would expect him to be from the start of the season. He was chipping in with really important goals. His movement was really good. He was creating plenty. So I think if Cantwell's available, it'll hurt Cantwell as well. I think in terms of he missed out on some big games, and he's probably by his own admissions, he probably hasn't performed in some of the bigger games as well. He had a cracking Old Firm the tail end of last season, but in the other ones that we've had so far, he's kind of been found wanting. Under Beale, obviously he was right back or something? He was played on the right hand side midfield, wasn't he? And he was further back than Tav at times. But yeah, last we mentioned of him. But I think if we can just get him back up to speed quite quickly, definitely want to see him starting at the weekend. If that means that Lawrence needs to drop back a line, then I'm up for that. But again, we'll get into that when we talk about the team selection for the weekend. But yeah, no, I think he'll be super important for us. He's I'd like to think some of the players now can kind of see that the end is near when it comes to the season, and we are really at that business end now. So I'm hoping some of the players will grab it by the scruff of the neck, because this is the last big push now. So there's kind of no excuses. They just got to leave everything out there and really big push into the end of the season.
Yeah, totally agree. It's of interest, and I'm fascinated that you've said that Sima is more important than Cantwell coming back. I can see both sides to the story, but just for me, for all the link up play and things like that, and just the amount of it's never left my head when Cantwell came in. He assists the assisters, and I remember him saying that and going, "What is he talking about?" But so much of our good attacking play comes through him. That's the only reason why I think that.
I just think the fine lines this season, if a player, our whole squad, if a player's running through one-on-one with the opposition goalkeeper, Dessers, Silva, haven't really seen it, whether he could do that. Roof, if he's fit, but for all of Roof's qualities, and we talk about, he could be the guy before the end of the season, I've said that myself. When was the last time he scored? And when was the last time he scored a couple of goals and a couple of bounces and stuff? So, yeah, if we get the big Sima fit to run into the end of the season, I said to me dad this afternoon, if we get the last 30 of him against Celtic at home, crowd bouncing, and he comes on, he can run over teams. He's got that much pace, power, and he can. What I like about him, he puts his foot through the ball when he shoots. Do you know what I mean? The amount of time you see the net just absolutely rattling. But yeah, you can see pros and cons for both. Ideally, want them both back. Let's not kid ourselves. I think both of them are in our strongest 11. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, and Reiss, the next player that I'll ask you about in terms of returning to the squad, a guy who was out with a long-term injury when he joined, well over a year ago now for Beale in the January transfer window there. I thought he was excellent. That was Nico Raskin. Well, since then he's had some quite sort of sporadic appearances, and the thing that's really stuck out for me in the sort of last few games he's played is his passing has been absolutely stinking, for lack of a better word. Raskin, is he going to be an important player coming back? What is it? Is he just recovering from a long-term injury? Is he a bit short of confidence at the minute?
I don't know, but he's not kicked his own rear end this season. He's not turned up at all this season for me. And I think, similar to the way JB says Sima is more important than Cantwell, I think the same could have probably been laid at Cantwell's feet for the first half of the season. But you're just hoping that something comes in Nico Raskin in the next few games, because if Raskin's not got his passing ability, what does he have? Because that was what we all thought when he came into the team, was that he's a great passer. But if he's not got that, then there's very limited aspects of his game that you're actually looking at and going, useful, we could do with that, get him in the team. So he's got to start improving for me. I don't think It's hard to put a finger on it. I think if he was more aggressive in the tackle, then you could at least go with that. If his passing is maybe a bit flawed, then his aggression would maybe make up for it. I don't think he'll ever be energetic enough to be a box-to-box in the type that maybe Lundstrom has been at his peak. But it's just, we'll need to wait and see. But I don't think, to be totally honest with you, I don't think Raskin will be an important player come the end of the season. Or between now and the end of the season.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Paul McGarrigle here says Raskin just needs time. Injuries hampered him. He's just forcing the passes. He's just trying too hard. What do you make of that, JB? Do you agree with that? Do you agree with Reiss? Do you think that he's not going to be an important player to the end of the season? Because I thought he'd be the guy that'd be coming in and giving John Lundstrom a rest in the last 30 minutes of games, but it doesn't seem to have really been doing that so far.
Yeah, I mean, when he first come in, as Reiss touched on there, what we all loved about him, he loved the forward pass, and he loved to try and, I just remember he was pinging balls from everywhere, and you thought, wow, where's this kid kind of come from? And then, obviously then, season finished, and then as we moved into the start of the season, he kind of started a bit slow, and then obviously picked up that injury, because he was fantastic in that. Was it Clermont's first game, Hibs at home, scored a cracker, and you could just see, you thought, right, there we go, he's going to kick on again under his fellow countrymen. So you kind of hope that these football analogies kind of, the stars align. But no, he hasn't really, just hasn't kicked on, has he? The game he come on, who did he come on against? He come on against someone, and the game was quite tight, and you thought, right, just keep possession, keep it easy. And he just gave everything away, and you're like, oh, God, he's in the wrong movie type of thing. But
yeah,
I know we're going to get on it later, but you know, when you touched on that, the host family show that Rangers put out later thing, this kid's only 21, 22. He's moved to a different country for the first time, and we've seen that initial peak from him where his adrenaline must have been absolutely through the roof. It just feels like he's just plateaued a little bit. So there's no doubt you don't play that many games for Belgium under 21s and have that responsibility that he has within that team unless you've got something going for you. I do think he looks a little bit heavy. I know when we signed, he wasn't skinny, but he does look as if he's bulked out a little bit. So you're just wondering whether, while he was out injured, what type of exercise was he doing? Was he fiddling out a bit to try and get himself to the rigor of Scottish football and stuff? But I don't know. He could be one that we've just kind of he slipped off the radar in a lot of Rangers fans' eyes. But again, another one he might be playing for his Rangers future. I know that might sound a bit dramatic, but we brought him in for next to nothing. His stock will still be really high around Europe. So if he might be one that we might look to rotate out in the summer. So he's got to show that he wants to be here and wants to play for a team that is hopefully going to be competing in the Champions League, worst case Europa League. So yeah, it's up to him.
That's it. There's a couple of comments coming in here. RFC72 says, Raskin just needs time. He was one of our best players end of last season. No one played well under Beale, and these are the first injuries in his career. He'll be back to his best soon enough. Yeah, totally agree with that, and hopefully that's the case, RFC72. And then we've got a comment, which is kind of the other end of the spectrum, and that is King Charles Spaniel. I love that username, by the way. And it says, Raskin has never been any good at passing. Rather have Ryan Jack. Yeah, it's fair enough. I think just it's interesting in terms of that, because from a quota point of view for Europe, you'd maybe rather have the Scottish player in there. But I think from a performance due and from a sell-on value, I think Raskin's far more important to the Rangers squad at the whole at the minute. Reiss, the next question that I'll come on to ask you about is, I've written down wingers, but I don't actually mean wingers. I just want to talk about the wide men. The first guy I'll come to you with is Ross McCausland. There was actually quite a few interesting comments from the Northern Ireland manager, Michael O'Neill. He said that Ross McCausland's basically been playing through the pain barrier the past few weeks, months for Rangers. It's quite a complicated injury. Not sure when he's going to be back, but from Michael O'Neill's perspective, the most important thing, and it's really rare you hear an international manager say this, that it's the most important thing is that he's back playing for Rangers. Is he a guy that you want to see back soon? And my thinking behind that is I think the squads the team on the pitches look really unbalanced, and these guys offer us just natural width because they're used to playing there. I know you and I have seen him play a couple of times for the B team and obviously at Ibrox, and I've been impressed with him. Are you happy to see him back? Is he a guy that you want to see back quite quickly?
Yeah, 100%. I think, like you alluded to, that he gives you that width, and he's an actual attacking threat rather than just being someone playing there out of position and trying not to look out of place. I think if you play guys like Sterling out there, Sterling's probably a poor example to use because he is quite effective, but Scott Wright comes in and just doesn't want to put a foot wrong. He never seems like he's going to actually take a man on. He's not quick enough to beat a man, really, whereas McCausland gives you quite a bit more dynamism, I would say. He's a lot more athletic. I've heard them being referred to as a Jack Russell, that if your left back's get the ball, he's getting hounded till we get the ball back. So it's good to have him back for that point of view as well. But I think there's only so many players that we can really afford to be playing out of position at the minute. And if we're playing guys like Dujon, Sterling at centre mid, then to have someone else out of position at right wing, just it gives the team too much unfamiliarity. There's too much going on at that point, and to get players back playing in their natural positions will be a massive boost for us if we can get it to happen.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's just to have him as an option. I mean, he's a guy that I felt that definitely needed a rest, not a rest through injury, and hopefully he comes back, the injury's sorted out, and I think he's a guy that will really kick on for us, and hopefully we can see him there. JB, I'll come to the next point. I've obviously, in fact, I'll ask you this before because I thought this was actually a really good question from Sunday's show, and I know we got Reiss's answer from that one there. But while we're talking about wide players being injured, obviously been mentioned already, Cortez, absolute shocker from injury, a guy who I think we'd all just be assuming would just be starting every game for Rangers based on the form that we have. But would you sign Cortez permanently based on what you've seen so far?
An injury-prone winger. Yeah, sounds right up our street. Depends how much. What fee did you attach, or was it?
I think it's off the top of my head, and I could be wrong with this. I think it's a option to buy, and it's around 4.3 million.
Yeah, based on the ability that we've seen that the kid's got. Yeah, he offered something different. But again, I remember thinking we were selling Raskin for 20 million tail end of last season when he first went after the break. And so was he just another one that came in with lots of energy? I think realistically, if I'd take him for another year on loan, if that was an option, maybe a decent fee with a loan, probably a £1-2 million loan fee or something like that. Would probably suffice. I think you could see he had so much quality. He was direct. He was just exactly what we've been missing over the years. I think when Sima went out, I think the manager and Nils Koppen or whoever's done the deal identified the perfect fit for what we needed at the time. And every time he played, he just looked so direct and so up for it. And it would have been great to have seen him on like the European scene. It'd been great to see him in some of the big matches coming up towards the tail end of the season, semi-finals, cup finals, Old Firms. It would be interesting to see how he would adapt to them situations. But yeah, I'd definitely like to see more of him. But at the end of the day, it's I think what he wants to do, I think, will be super important. And it depends, obviously, what the selling club want to do as well. Obviously, they threw a lot of money at him to bring him over from South America. Didn't settle well, whether that be through cultural or just the individual manager. If they have a change of manager, change of coach, they might want to take a look at him. And how long is he actually going to be out for as well? It sounds like quite a serious operation. So he might be someone. I'd take him if he's back for pre-season. That would probably be me. If he's there for day one of pre-season, then I'd be up for the deal. Because if doesn't strike me as the type of guy that you're going to want to bring in unfit and then have to try and get him fit during the season. So if that injury all goes according to plan, everyone speaks really highly of him, and it looked like he did enjoy his brief spell with us. So yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah, that's it. I'm being corrected in the comments. I think I've given Lons an extra 0.75 million in my valuation of him there. There's some wee guy called Reiss in the comments saying it's 3.5 million, so I'll take that on board. And CJM here says Cortez will be at 3.5 million. I would try and get him another loan. From what I've seen, he's better than Matondo, Wright and McCausland put together. That's an interesting opinion. They are Paul McGarrigle here. So I was on Cortez. I would try and get him for another loan, 3.5 million. RFC 72, same thing. We try and get him another loan. I think that would probably be best, but you're totally right. It entirely depends on what the selling club want to do. Look, I'll get back to wingers that are actually returning to fitness. I'll come. Ross, I'm giving you all the big star players tonight, and it's somebody that has been mentioned, and it's Rabbi Matondo. He was another one that featured in it, but sort of chucked on in the last 10 minutes of that Benfica game. And it's just, it goes back to my point earlier on. I know he's a squad player, but some of these squad players are so important, especially in title-winning teams, because they give other guys rests. They score. I mean, I think he's got 4 or 5 goals this season, which is, it's not a lot, but they all count. They all go towards points at the end of the day. I'm not saying are you looking forward to having Rabbi Matondo back, but from a bigger picture, is it good to have natural width back in the team with guys like Rabbi Matondo?
100%. I would openly say I'm looking forward to having Rabbi Matondo back in the team. I think every time we've started electrically at Ibrox, he's been on the left-hand side. Like, if you think about the games that we've come out the traps flying, scored early on and put a team to bed, I can't remember the game it was. Might have been the one he scored in, actually. That Matondo's usually been the one on the left, and at the moment, off the top of my head, unless Sima's back playing, then Matondo would be my start on the left-hand side. So I'm delighted that he's actually back, because I don't know if it's just this international break sent me mental, but I can't really think of anybody else that would be playing the left-hand side at the minute.
Fabio Silva, you'd start Matondo over Fabio Silva?
Off the left-hand side, I would, yeah. I think Silva's better centrally in tight areas.
Oh, that's very, very interesting. I was going to say CGM 55 here says Matondo loves an injury. Just as soon as he starts playing well, get rid. So yeah, that's a very interesting school of thought there. Give me 2 ticks. I'll just add JB back into things. Good. It's all going well tonight. It's like musical chairs and this is Ibrox Wednesday podcast. But there you go. It's just all the excitement for the international football being over and Rangers being back. But yeah, I'll come to you. You've talked to him a wee bit about it there, JB, before, and this isn't, claiming an exclusive or saying anything that he's going to be back. A question was asked on the press conference a couple of weeks ago about Abdallah Sima. The manager, I think, was saying, he's not going to be back that quickly. But this is round about the time, sort of late March, early April, was when we were told that he would be back from his injury. You've already nailed your colours to the mast and said, said that he's the most important player coming back, but he's going to be huge if he is back. I don't think he'll be fit enough to start, but would you give him minutes?
100%, yeah. I think we just need to get him back on the park and just let him do his thing. I mean, this is the same guy who actually labelled him the worst 45 minutes of football he'd ever seen in the first half against PSV in that qualifier. Before he rocketed that 25-yard screamer. I remember being in the club and saying to the lads, he's the worst I've ever seen. And now I'm backing him to go to lead us to the treble. But the fickle football fans. But he, 100%. I think we just need to try and get one thing about the managers we touched on a few times. He'll get well managed. It might be a case of picking and choosing his opposition. It might be a case of picking and choosing his minutes. We haven't got a clue what's going on behind the scenes. We don't know whether there's been bounce games. We don't know whether there's been situations where these guys have been really pushing to get back. Or we don't know whether he might kick another ball again this season. It is literally just going to be a case of waiting games. I think all eyes are going to be on the Rangers training video this week to see what snippets, and we can all turn into doctors and say, "Oh, he looks like he looks sharp," or he's getting involved in the training drills and whatever else. But no, I just hope he can have an impact at the end of the season, because I'll say it now, if he plays the minutes, he'll be our top goal scorer from now to the end of the season. If he plays as many minutes if he gets 30 minutes a game from now to the end of the season, he'll finish our top goal scorer. So, and we need goals. That's one thing about this
It's hard to disagree.
one thing about this team, we need goals, but there's a real lack of firepower. We've got plenty of creators, but have we got anyone that can? If they only get one chance, they'll take it. He's clinical, so he's the one that I'm going to. I hope I'm not building all of my hopes on. He would have been, and I don't understand how we never done it. He should have been our number 9. If he was our number 9 throughout even when he was there, he'd probably put another 10 goals on top of the goals he scored. Because you might say, oh yeah, but he scores all his goals because he comes in from the left on the blind side and stuff. He doesn't. He's so composed in a one-on-one positions. He scores poachers goals. He scores worldies. He's got a bit of everything. So yeah, wait and see.
Yeah, I can't remember who the goal was against, but there was one of the games where he just took. I thought Cantwell was actually going to have the shot, and he just came in from the left and just absolutely smashed it. And I was like, that is what we need a wee bit more of. And I could see, I'll certainly be a question I'll be asking you, Reiss, because I agree with you, JB, in terms of I would love, it was like Tillman last season. I would have loved to have seen him playing as a number 9 just to see what he could do. I think if Sima was fit at the minute, given the striker crisis that we have, I think we'd be seeing that through necessity, him playing through the middle. But you never know, it might be something. Reiss, Abdallah Sima, whether he's back at the weekend, there's a few comments saying that they think that he will be back on the bench at the weekend there. I don't want, even though we've played quite well since the coming back from the winter break, we've not dropped, I think we've dropped 3 points in that time against Motherwell, played pretty well. But I think it's still fair to say that Sima's been a miss for us, which is crazy given how well we've played. Do you agree with that statement? And how important is it going to be, even from a psychological point of view, to have a player that scored, I think it's 15 goals and 33 appearances this year?
I think it was huge. I think it gives us another option as well, because at the start of the season, what's really impressed me actually so far about Clement is the adaptability in the ways we attack. So when Sima's not been there, we had to restructure our attacks entirely. Like, I don't think I've seen Goldson hit a diag to the left wing in about 6 months, or at least Sima's been out. And it just gives you that option again, because Sima wins every ball in the air. He's an aerial threat. He'll win a ball in the air. He'll beat a man 1v1, and he scores his goals. So he's going to be huge, and it gives us that. We used to playing teams and passing teams off the park in small intricate spaces, but it means that if the option's on, Goldson's got somebody to hit on the left-hand side now who's going to win the ball, pull it down, and you're automatically 30 yards up the park, at least. So it gives us something different. And like JB says, his goal record's quite hard to disagree with. Well, not disagree with, but quite hard to argue with at this point. So it'll be good to see him back, and especially if he scores goals. I'm not as big a fan of him as a striker, because I think he's better at standing somebody up 1v1 and absolutely rinsing them, which you don't really get as much space to do in the middle. But just to have a guy like that back in your team, doesn't matter where he's playing, you take him. Yeah,
that's it. It'll be interesting to see where he does come in. I think I agree with you. I think he will be playing out on out wide, because that's what we need as a squad at the moment. But there's a guy that sits a few rows behind us at Ibrox, and every time Sima's in the ball, or when he always used to say this thing, and it was just buzz him, and that was just take the ball by him, and that's what I think every time I see him. And yeah, that's exactly what we do. A couple of comments here. Paul McGarrigle says Sima just offers something different, and that's exactly what it is. You can't quite put your finger on it. He's a bit unpredictable at times, but to me, he's like Sakala, but he knows what he's actually doing, if that makes sense. And RFC 72 says Sima's defending is very underrated. We put some shift in for the team off the ball, which I think is another fantastic point. Right, look, the last injury question that I'll ask in this podcast, incredible, we've talked about injuries for like 40 minutes so far, so I'm just going to lump these 3 players together. Dowell, no idea when he'll be back. Kamar Roof is being managed at the minute, and Ryan Jack. I'll come to you here, JB. These guys just have to be managed until the end of the season. Do you think we'll see any part? And for me, to be honest, I can only see these 3 featuring in terms of if we're a couple of goals up, we're just subbing bodies on just to give people minutes.
Yeah, I think it'll be a mixture of that and horses for courses in terms of if you need to see a game out, a tight game out, you need a bit of know-how, then Ryan Jack might come in for 10, 15 minutes just to see games out. If we need a goal and what the ball's going to break for one particular player, then Kamar Roof will be the guy that does that role. Kamar Roof is a question for the viewers. If Kamar Roof scores 10 goals between now and the end of the season, does he get a new contract? Because it's at some point, you know what's going to happen. He's going to leave us to go and play a 35 game a season striker in the Championship and score 20 odd goals. Do you know what I mean? He's going to go and do a Phil Hollander. Do you know what I mean? So playing at the World Cup with Jamaica, and like, oh, how did we let him go? But no, seriously, I think he's going to be. I just hope for his sake that we can squeeze as much out of him from now to the end of the season. We've all said it, and I think everyone said it. He is, when he's fit, the best striker at the club, and whether that includes Danilo, Sima, Dessers, Silva. From what I've seen, the eye test tells you that when Kamar Roof's on the pitch, he causes problems. He takes chances. His movement's brilliant. I always remember the goal he scored during lockdown, the one he scored with his chest, where Callum McGregor was sent off just a few minutes later. It was just the thought process, just the right. I've just got to get my chest in there to get this one over the line. And obviously he's not afraid of the spectacular as well, which he's proved in a couple of the big European games. So yeah, I just hope he's. And don't forget, he had a cracking first half against Celtic at Ibrox. First all-firm game of the season. Took that goal really well. That'll unfortunately be forgotten about over time.
Yeah.
Where Dessers obviously was accused of the foul. So he's watched this space with Kamar Roof. You just don't know what you're going to get to yet, but one thing's for certain, he could be absolutely integral into the running.
Yeah, it's fascinating. As I said, we're going to need everybody for this title running, and it's just until the end of the season, you'll never know who's played a really important part. But yeah, there's a few comments coming in here. RFC72 says Jack can give Lunny a rest in certain games if he's fit, and that's exactly it. That's exactly the role that I see Ryan Jack filling until the end of the season. Paul McGarrigle says Roof for Old Firm games. CGM55 says Roof will start games. And JD with a comment of the night, I think, says send Jack, Roof and Dowell to Dr. Frankenstein and we'll make one Uber footballer. So you never know, there might be something in that. That, or if we could just clone 11 Dujon Sterlings, I'd be more than delighted with that as well. But right, listen, I think that's all the injury chat done for tonight. Something a bit different. Reiss, I'll come to you. There was a really, really, really insightful video that went out on the official B Team and Academy account today, and that was to do with the host families, something that I've just never really considered about. It's about in fact, I'll just let you talk about it because I know this is something that you're passionate and keen about.
Yeah, so it was just for those who haven't seen it, it's a video detailing how players Rangers sign, whether it's from Northern Irish soccer schools or teams in Northern Ireland. Archie Stevens down south was an example used as well. They're housed with families in Scotland, so I'd assume it'll be near the training centre, just for somewhere for the boys to stay, grow up, make sure they're in a protected environment while they're at Rangers. And it was quite a heartwarming video, I think it's fair to say, albeit that sounds a bit cringy, but you seen the people who house footballers. There was a woman on it saying she had 10 Rangers players in her time and part of the project, and it's good to see that there's people out there in the club that are taking care of the players in a more holistic way, that they're learning to cook and stuff like that, just wee basic things. And you had Archie Stevens saying, oh, when I cook with, I think the woman was like Mogi or something, she sends my mum a photo of me cooking and stuff, just wee things like that just sort of made me laugh. And it's good because you've got to have that environment around players in order for them to develop, especially when you're at that age. That age is probably the easiest time in your life to just bin something off because you don't like it. If you're not interested and you know you're a good footballer, you'll go elsewhere and make it if it means you're getting to go back home and see your pals. So it's good to see that it's been a productive project and something that the club are making use of, because it's certainly helping us produce better players in terms of they're more focused, and I think it's just a general good thing to have.
Yeah, I totally agree. A couple of comments about it. O for a Hill says, we'll talk video. Paul McGarrigle says, host families was a great watch. Women had 10 youth players over the years. And yeah, that's something. But that's like me to my missus when I make the dinner, when I'm like, I've made some lasagna and I'm absolutely buzzing out my banger because I've actually done it. But the other thing I was thinking about it is it must be such a good selling point for us getting youth players up, because I don't imagine there's many other clubs that will have that structure, somewhere where they can go and feel comfortable. And I think that's, she was like, I can't remember if it was, is it Fiona or Mogi, as you said, one of the two of them said that it's important they feel like, they're boys and they're learning to grow up, and it's a huge part of the development process. So I take my hat off to everybody that's involved in that. And it was just nice to see as you said, quite a feel-good video, which doesn't happen very often on Rangers social media, but there we go. And look, JB, before we got on to the Hibs game, the next point I want to come on to you is a wee bit of interesting news that I saw, or everybody saw during earlier on in the week, and it was that Lewis McLeod is rejoining the club, coaching at the under-14s. There was quite an interesting bit of that interview that I just wanted to highlight there. Lewis McLeod said, Zeb Jacobs and all the coaches have had real vision for the way the youth set up to go. I think it's a good thing we have ex-Rangers players as part of the coaching staff. It's good to have that mix that includes people who have played here and know what it's about. It's a good dynamic. We can pass on our experiences to the players, and I am learning here every day too. It's something we've maybe not seen in the past in terms of loads of ex-Rangers players, but that's Stephen Smith and heavily involved in the B team, that kind of link between the B team and the first team. Obviously Alex Ray back in, one of the most important coaches, I think, that come out and said that. But yeah, what's your thoughts on this move to get more Rangers-minded men back in at the club, especially ex-pros?
Yeah, I think it's just a case. You just got to find the balance, haven't you? Because they've got to be the right people. Do you know what I mean? We're not here running it's not a testimonial we're running. Do you know what I mean? We need to make sure that any ex-players that are coming back need to tick the boxes and have the ability to be able to do the job that we need them to do. I think in Lewis McLeod's example, it's a bit of a horror story for him in terms of having to retire at such a young age. So much ability. I mean, if you think about when we were coming through the divisions, he was one of the very few bright sparks. I remember when he broke through and you thought, wow, he just looked different. You could just see he was a step above everyone. And whether that was because of some of the players he was surrounded with, you know what I mean? Your Ian Blacks, your Dailies, your Laws, Fosters, Machinis and stuff. So maybe he was looking better because of the guys he was with. But he just had this real energy, and his ability he was brilliant from set pieces. He was great at arriving into the box. He was the only player I used to describe. He was like Tim Cahill at Everton. Yeah. He just seemed to just be there, and he always seems to be in loads of space. And I remember going up for the Livingston away game, and he scored that overhead kick. And I remember watching it and thinking, I remember the ball coming across. I think it was Ian Black might have skewed across on a pass. And I thought, what's he going to do here? And he looked up a yard or two offside. Next thing you know, bicycle kick into the top corner. I think everyone just looked to the linesman, waiting for the flag to go up, and it was kept. But I was reading this afternoon. I was trying to think of how many games that he played, because I know we had a few injury challenges when he was with us as well. But he wrapped up 52 games as we come through the divisions. So pretty decent effort with 11 goals a turn. So. Loads of ability, and now obviously he's gone down south and things just haven't worked out for him. I don't think by the sounds of it, his body wasn't built for the rigours of professional football, which was unfortunate. I think I watched him in a recent interview as well, and said he had a number of knee injuries that never used to show up on scans. So he'd go for a scan, and then obviously the accusation is in the player's head. But then when the surgeons used to open him up, it was like, we can see the problem now that we've opened it. So, I just hope he comes in, and one thing's for certain, he knows the score. He knows what it takes to come through at Rangers. And again, that mixed with hopefully a hunger to develop players. And he's a Rangers fan as well. So, starting with the under-14s, that gives him a chance to prove himself while he goes through his badges and his licenses and whatever else. And wish him nothing but the best of luck. So watch this space with Lewis.
Yeah, I think everybody, this is Ibrox, echoes those sentiments exactly. Good luck to him, and RFC 72 just, I think, sums up everything quite nicely. There was some talent as well, gutted about how his career ended up, but I'm glad we've given him the chance in the youth setup. He also knows what it takes to make it through the academy, so a good example for the kids. So yeah, and Ofra Hill says JB, it's good to see him back as well. So yeah, I think a lot of people will be chuffed. But like, listen,
Me or
last
Lewis
10 minutes.
McLeod?
What's that?
Good to see me back, or Lewis McLeod? Who was that comment?
Bit of both.
I was going to say.
That's exactly what it is. But listen, we're finally glad to be talking about an actual game at the weekend. Obviously, we'll get all the updates from the presser on Friday. I think you might be going to that, Reiss. So yeah, I'm sure check it out in the This Is Ibrox. All the latest news from that presser as soon as it's available. But Reiss, I'll start with you here. Obviously, Hibs recently changed a few things. They went from a 4-4-2 to a 4-4-3, seem to be getting a wee bit more joy through that. We know the Hibs manager, Nick Montgomery, always comes out, plays nice attacking football. Have I said that name wrong there because you're laughing at me?
No, you said 4-4-3.
Oh, 4-4-3. Listen, it's been a long day. I'm tired, all right. But that's how they've been getting so much success, because they've got an extra player on the pitch. But yeah, we know some of their danger men, Jordan Abita, that of Emilio Marcondes, who I think went to ground quite easily a couple of times the last time we played them, and Martin Boyle, who was obviously absolutely flattened by John Suter as well the last time. What are you expecting from Hibs, Reiss?
I think the Hibs always seem promising on the attack. Like at the start of the season, they were so open and expansive that it almost came across as like either delusional or naivety, that you were just able to play through them like they were rotten. But they seem to have changed it up a wee bit, made a few smart additions in January, and they're a much better team now. I really like Eli Yuan. Like, I'll go on record, and I have said it in the chat before, I would take Eli Yuan at Rangers. I think his ball carrying is unbelievable, and he's an asset we could be doing with. So I think if we can nullify their threats enough, and we should have the quality in the squad to do that, then we should really walk over Hibs, because they've not been great this season, and that sort of thing doesn't just appear and disappear out of a team. I think that takes a lot longer than it has been to coach that right out of a team. So start on the front foot, get at them, score a goal in the first half, and we should canter it.
Oh, them's fighting words indeed. A couple of comments I'm just going to bring up here. JD says, Kyle just made the supporters a 13th man. I'm never giving any credit to any Hibs supporter ever, so no thanks there. And Ross pipes up and he says, Hibs come to Ibrox an extra man. Well, Colin must be the referee. JB, just get your thoughts. And again, obviously there's still some question marks over injuries, as we've just spent 40 minutes of the podcast talking about, but we'd love to get your thoughts on what the starting 11 will be against Hibs at the weekend.
Oh, so I should have wrote this down, shouldn't I? I'll go with Butland, Tavernier, Goldson. I think Balogun might come in. I had a bit of a thought over the last week or so, with so many players out on international duty, one thing or another. Clement strikes me as the type of manager that he'll kind of prepare for all scenarios. So he's had a chance with a group of players there to maybe come up with something that might combat Hibs that we just maybe either haven't seen, or just something just a wee bit outside the box. So there's been time to get time on the training ground with a back four of Tavernier, Goldson, Balogun. Barisic didn't travel, did he? I assume, with Croatia. He certainly wasn't involved or didn't make any of the benches. I'm assuming he didn't travel. So it would be Barisic. My only concern with Barisic would be Martin Boyle. If Martin Boyle's available, then that's Barisic's nightmare stuff. But as we touched on earlier, Barisic doesn't tend to let us down at Ibrox. Certainly away from home, we've had lots of challenges, but at home, no concerns. Lundstrom, Lawrence and Cantwell, probably be midfield three, bring Lawrence back a line. We've seen great success in that in a couple of the games that we did see Lawrence that little bit deeper. And then I'll go with a high three. Based on availability, I'll probably be looking at something like Wright, Roof and Silva. That'll be me front three. So I know it was controversial. Went with Roof to start against Benfica at home. That never materialised. But I've just got this little bit of a theory that the players that never went on international duty, there's been plenty of time to get these guys to gel, work on little routines, work on overloads or whatever it might be. And then obviously Silva was absolutely flying on the back of the international scene. I think he got man of the match in the last game, scored in the game before. So yeah, I think we keep him on cloud 9 and throw him in. I think you're probably just looking at 1 or 2 changes outside of that.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair enough. You've totally caught me off guard by saying Roof, and then I was even more shocked when you said Scott Wright. But I suppose I have been banging on about natural width and the balance of the team not being right.
That's not for ability. It's just for the lack. It's just a lack of it. I'd rather Sterling was in. I want Sterling to be starting against them the following week. So I've got one eye on that to make sure, because I think we're going to need the best chance we're obviously previewing a game ahead, but we're going to have to be physical. I think we're going to have to make sure that we're quite intimidating and make sure we're on it the following week. And I think having someone like Sterling that can cover so much ground and make opposition players so uncomfortable, someone who can press high, someone who can be really aggressive, then yeah, I definitely want Sterling in the following week.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how that would pan out. I agree. I would rather Sterling played against the other half of the Old Firm than this weekend if you were choosing. But the more games he plays for me, the better. This is a question from right at the start, and Reiss will ask you this as well. What's your overall thoughts on the lineup? And it says, Kyle, wee question for you guys. Do you think Balogun might get a start on Saturday? And just to mix that up a wee bit, I just assumed that would be for John Souttar, but I'm seeing lots of people in the comments saying, nah, take Connor Goldson out, give him a rest. I know he's a guy that's been getting a bit of criticism the past few weeks, but I never even thought about that, to be honest with you. Would you do something like that? What's your starting lineup, and would you take Goldson out and start Balogun?
Mine's is the same as JB's, really, except I think I would throw Sterling. I would definitely play Sterling right wing this game. So I think when he first came into the team, because he wasn't kind of sharp, he was poor. So it took him a while to actually get going, probably until Clement came in, really. So I think that familiarity with him will serve him better for the following week, as you say. Silva, I think I would have up front as well. And then it's a toss-up between Matondo and Sima based on who's been training longest, who's freshest and stuff for the left-hand side. But Balogun, yeah, definitely. As JB said, like, these international players haven't been away. Balogun's been there the whole time. He's had a few weeks getting used to the mask. He might even have the mask off by now, who knows? But he'll definitely be comfortable with it, and Clement will have had 10 days, 2 weeks to really assess him performing with it day in, day out, and say how comfortable am I with putting him in there. And Souttar's not in the best of form at the minute, so I think he's a bit of a nightmare for international duty as well there. You don't take Connor Goldson out of Rangers team for me. There's certain players you just don't take out. I think Goldson and Tavernier are definitely 2 players that we don't drop at the minute. Butland would be the other obvious one, but I think he just offers so much off the ball that he's not there. We've seen it last year, how that defence folded at Aberdeen and other places, that it's really difficult without your leader there at the back.
Yes, it'll be fascinating. There was me after prepping for this podcast and writing all these injuries down, going, I don't actually know who. The team picks itself because we've got nobody to play, but it's, I'm not too far off either of you. If Sterling's fit, I would absolutely be starting him on the right wing, because I take your point about Scott Wright. He's not in there for ability, but it's just, I think against Hibs, especially if some of the pace that they have with some of their players, depending on what side Martin Boyle's on, depending if Eli Yuhan starts, I would quite like to see what we call him, Sterling, from a defensive point of view down their left hand side. I think the only change I went, if Cantwell's fit, I would be starting Cantwell in that sort of 10 position, and Fabio Silva's got to start for me, given how well he's done. And obviously my boy Diomande, he'll be the first name in every Rangers team sheet that I predict from now and for as long as he's at the club. But listen, before we go, as is tradition, I'll just get a wee score prediction off you both. I'll start with you, JB.
I'll go with 1-0 South Penn.
Oh, I'd love that. That'll get the keyboards from the other half of the city furiously typing. We love nothing more than that. And same question to yourself, Reiss.
3-0 Rangers.
You think so? You really do think it's going to be a bit of a blitz then?
I'm ever the pessimist, but I just feel there's something about that Hibs team that the minute you score first against them, the Weetabix will just crumble. So I just think you score early and we'll counter it. 3-0.
No, fair enough. I hope that's right. I'm going to sit slightly more on the fence. I think we will concede, but I think we've got enough in the tank to score more goals than Hibs. So I think we'll certainly get a couple of goals. But listen, that just about wraps it up for tonight. I just want to say thank you to everybody tuning in, watching. It's been a pleasure with my two guests. I cannot wait for the football Saturday, 3 o'clock. Just a bit of housekeeping before we go. One wee thing to mention, got to say congratulations to the women on winning the Sky Sports Cup at the weekend. If you haven't already, go and check out our podcast on audio platforms. Kendall and Scott Patterson were covering it for us as Ibrox. It's really good. We 10-15 minutes just talking about the game. So if you haven't listened to that, go and check that out already. We will be back with our post-match reaction on Saturday live from, or not live from Ibrox, but we will be doing it from Ibrox. So it'll go out after that. And then we have the podcast on Saturday at 8:30, just dissecting that game and just talking about how good it is to see Rangers play again. But listen, just want to say thank you to everybody out there for watching and tuning. Take care, and we'll see you all again soon.